My ex used me to pay for her dream house. While cheating so, I ghosted her completely and left her begging for answers she couldn't give. And I thought I'd finally found the woman who made all my sacrifices worth it. For most of my 20s, my life was all about grind and survival, long workdays, skipped vacations, and living in a tiny one-bedroom apartment that felt more like a storage closet than a home. I wasn't rich, but I was proud of what I'd built. Every dollar I saved was a promise to my future self that one day things would be better. Then came Hannah. She wasn't just beautiful, she had this magnetic confidence that drew people in. I met her through a mutual friend at a cafe, and from the moment she smiled at me, it felt like my tired world suddenly had color again. She listened when I talked about my work, my ambitions, even my fear of never being enough. She'd touch my hand and say, "You've got potential. You just need to dream bigger." No one had ever said that to me before. Before long, coffee dates turned into long evenings in my apartment, sharing takeout and talking about everything: life goals, family, and what we wanted 5 years from now. "Our own place," she'd say with this dreamy look in her eyes. "Something modern, with a view." I used to laugh and tell her, maybe one day, but she'd squeeze my hand and reply, "No, our day." Something about her belief in me lit a fire I didn't know I had. I started working harder, not just for me but for us. She made me believe I could build a life that meant something. When she leaned her head on my shoulder one night and whispered, "Let's build something together," I didn't hesitate. For the first time, it didn't feel like I was chasing an impossible dream. It felt like I'd already found it. After that night, everything changed. Hannah and I weren't just dating anymore. We were planning a future. She had this way of making every conversation about us, our next step, our dream life, our forever home. It wasn't just talk either. She'd spend hours scrolling through real estate listings, showing me pictures of cozy houses with big windows and wraparound porches. "Can't you just see us here?" she'd ask, eyes glowing. I'd nod, imagining her laughter echoing down those halls. She pushed me, in a good way, or at least that's what I thought. "You're so close to something big," she'd say. "You just need to save smarter." So I did. I took extra shifts. I skipped dinners out with friends. I even sold my old guitar, the one thing I'd sworn I'd never let go of, just to put more into our savings. Every week, I'd transfer a chunk of my paycheck into what I called our Dream House Fund. Hannah cheered me on like my personal life coach. "You're incredible," she'd tell me, hugging me tight. Most men wouldn't work this hard for their future. But as months went by, I noticed something. While my bank account was shrinking, hers never seemed to change. Whenever I brought it up, she'd wave it off. "Babe, you know I'm not earning as much right now. But once I get that promotion, I'll catch up. This is teamwork." And I believed her. Because that's what love was supposed to be. Trust. She even started taking me to open houses just to get ideas, she said. We'd walk through empty rooms, sunlight pouring in, and I'd picture us building a life there. One afternoon, she looked at me and said, "Let's make this real. We can get the house under my name. It'll be easier for the loan." I hesitated, just for a second. But then she smiled, that same warm, reassuring smile that made me forget every doubt. I still remember signing those papers, or rather watching her sign them. It was all in Hannah's name, just like she said it had to be. "It's temporary," she promised, resting her hand on mine as the agent printed the final page. "Once we're married, we'll update everything. It's just easier this way." I wanted to believe her. I told myself paperwork didn't matter if love was real. The day we moved in, it felt like every sacrifice had been worth it. The air smelled of fresh paint and possibility. We danced in the living room, surrounded by unopened boxers, laughing about how grown-up we suddenly were. She took a photo of us with the caption, "Our Beginning." I didn't realize then that I wasn't part of the title, just the caption. Weeks turned into months, and I threw myself into making the place perfect. I fixed the leaky faucet, built the patio bench she wanted, even refinished the old dining table from my apartment. Every nail, every screw, every late-night sanding wood or painting walls felt like building our future. But the bills, the mortgage, the insurance, the renovations, all came from my account. "You handle this part," she'd say sweetly. "I'll manage the decor." At first, I brushed it off. She was busy with work, and I wanted her to feel taken care of. But little things started gnawing at me. Her sudden obsession with privacy, her phone glued to her hand, the way she'd step outside to take calls. When I asked who it was, she'd smile and say, "Just work stuff, babe. You wouldn't want to hear about spreadsheets." I tried not to question it. After all, we had a house now. We were building something real. But sometimes, late at night, I'd catch her staring at her phone with this distant look in her eyes, like she was somewhere else entirely. And part of me started wondering, maybe she already was. It started small, a shift so subtle I almost missed it. Hannah wasn't the same woman who used to text me good morning before I even woke up. Now, she'd leave early for work, half-finished coffee on the counter, and come home late, smelling of perfume that wasn't hers. When I'd ask how her day was, she'd shrugged, eyes glued to her phone. "Just busy," she'd say. "You know how it is." But I didn't, because the Hannah I knew always made time for us. Nights that used to be filled with laughter and shared takeout turned into silence, broken only by the sound of typing. I'd lie next to her, watching the blue light of her phone flicker across her face, wondering what could possibly be more important than talking to me. Once half asleep, I heard her whisper, "Good night?" in that soft tone she used to say for me, but her phone lit up right after. I told myself I was imagining things. Friends noticed too. "Everything okay with you two?" My buddy Matt asked over beers one night. "She's been different." I brushed it off. "She's just stressed," I said, forcing a laugh. "We're fine." But even as I said it, something inside me twisted. Then one evening, I got home early from work. Her car was already in the driveway, a surprise since she'd said she had a late meeting. I walked in quietly, hoping to catch her off guard and maybe reconnect like we used to. The house was dim, music low, candles flickering. "Hannah," I called softly. No answer. I took a few steps toward the living room and froze there. On the coat rack by the door hung a men's jacket. Expensive, not mine. My chest tightened as the music faded into static silence. My home, the one I paid for, the one she promised we'd build together, suddenly felt like someone else's. And for the first time, I realized I might not belong there anymore. I stood there staring at that jacket for what felt like hours. My mind tried to find reasons that made sense. Maybe a friend stopped by. Maybe a repairman left it behind. Anything but the thought clawing its way up my throat. When Hannah finally walked in, she froze too, just for a second, before flashing that calm, practiced smile. She said, picking the jacket up casually, "It's my cousin's. He came over to check the water heater while you were at work." Her tone was smooth, confident, the kind that makes you doubt your own instincts. "Your cousin?" I repeated. "The one who lives in Oregon?" She didn't even blink. "He's in town for a bit. Don't be paranoid, babe." Then she laughed, kissed me on the cheek, and went upstairs like nothing happened. That should have been my wake-up call. But instead, I convinced myself I was being dramatic. I'd spent my life working hard, not second-guessing people I loved, so I buried it, the doubt, the unease, and threw myself even harder into my job. Someone had to keep paying the mortgage, the utilities, the insurance, all still in her name. One night, I suggested we put both our names on the bills, just to make things official. She smiled faintly, eyes still on her laptop. "Why complicate it? I trust you. Isn't that enough?" And it worked. That simple line disarmed me completely. I wanted to believe that trust was still mutual, that our dream hadn't turned into something hollow. But the space between us kept growing. She was there physically, but her mind, her heart, felt miles away. She stopped reaching for my hand, stopped waiting up for me, stopped saying goodnight. I told myself she was just tired. But deep down, I knew she wasn't slipping away by accident. She was already gone. It happened on a Tuesday, one of those evenings where silence hung too heavy to ignore. Hannah was in the kitchen, pacing as she talked on her phone. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but her voice carried through the hallway, low and tense. "I told you, just wait until the papers are finalized," she whispered. "He has no idea." My blood went cold. "He has no idea." I leaned closer, careful not to make a sound. "Once it's in my name, we'll talk about moving in together," she said next. I felt something inside me crack, a slow, painful sound only I could hear. My hands trembled as I stepped back into the shadows, pretending I hadn't heard a thing. When she hung up, I forced a smile. "Everything okay?" I asked, trying to sound casual. She jumped slightly, her eyes flashing panic before she masked it with that same smile I'd once loved. "Just work," she said, brushing past me. You worry too much. That night, I barely slept. I sat on the couch, staring at the floor, piecing together every moment I'd ignored the phone calls, the sudden expenses, her excuses. It all fit too neatly now. She wasn't just cheating. She was planning something. I opened my laptop and checked public property listings. My heart stopped when I saw it. Our house was listed privately for sale under her name. A pending buyer, the betrayal hit harder than any punch could. I had financed every brick, every inch of that house, and she was about to sell it to move in with someone else. For the first time in my life, anger felt like clarity. I didn't confront her, not yet. Instead, I closed my laptop and whispered to myself, "You wanted to play games, Hannah? Fine, let's play." From that moment, my silence became my weapon. After that night, something in me shifted. I still played the part, the loving boyfriend, the supportive partner, the man building their shared dream. But behind that mask, every move I made had purpose. I became deliberate, quiet, calculating. I started small, gathering documents, payment receipts, every transfer and invoice tied to the house. My name wasn't on the deed, but the trail of money told the real story. Late at night, while she slept beside me, I'd scan papers under the dim light of my desk lamp, heart pounding, ears tuned for the creak of the stairs. Every click of the scanner felt like reclaiming a piece of my dignity. During the day, I pulled back. Fewer texts, less affection, shorter answers. She noticed, of course. "You've been distant," she said one evening, crossing her arms. "Is something wrong?" I met her gaze and forced a tired smile. "Just tired, that's all." She studied me for a moment, suspicious, maybe even nervous, but eventually shrugged. "Don't burn yourself out, okay?" Meanwhile, I started moving my savings into a private account she didn't know about. I paid off my car, canceled the shared credit card, and slowly disconnected myself from every financial tie. The more I detached, the lighter I felt. Then, one Friday night, she told me she was planning a romantic weekend getaway. Her voice was sugary, but her eyes, distant. I already knew the truth. She wasn't taking me. Brad, the mystery man from those late calls, was the one she'd reserved that lakeside cabin for, as she packed her bags the next morning. I stood in the doorway watching her. "Don't wait up," she said, smiling. "I won't," I replied quietly, and I meant it. That night, I packed too, just not for a weekend. For good, when she returned, there'd be no goodbye, no confrontation. Only silence. When Hannah drove off that Saturday morning, I watched her car disappear down the street and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. It was the kind of silence that fills the air after a storm, where the wreckage is still there, but the wind has finally stopped screaming. I took one long breath, then got to work. By noon, I'd packed everything that was truly mine: clothes, personal files, tools, and a few mementos that still held meaning. Everything else I left behind. The furniture, the TV, even the appliances I'd bought, they didn't matter anymore. Let her keep the trophies of her lies. I wiped my laptop, grabbed the last folder of financial records, and locked the front door for the final time. Before I left, I walked through the house once more. Every wall echoed with ghosts of conversations that used to feel sacred. The corner where we'd planned the nursery, the kitchen where she'd kissed me good morning before going to work. I paused by the living room window, the one with her favorite view, and whispered, "You'll look out one day and realize you built this alone." Then I left. I drove 3 hours to another city and rented a small apartment under my name only. No forwarding address, no explanations. I blocked her number, her family, every mutual friend, deleted every photo, every email. Within a week, mutual friends started calling from unknown numbers. "Hannah's freaking out," one said. "She can't find you." Another texted, "She's crying, man." What happened? I didn't reply. For once, I didn't owe anyone an explanation. Later, I heard she'd come home to an empty house, confused and furious. She emailed me dozens of times. The subject lines went from "please" to "why are you doing this?" to "I need to explain." I never opened them. Weeks turned into months. And with every passing day, Hannah's messages grew darker, from desperate apologies to furious blame. I didn't respond to any of them. But word travels fast, even when you're gone. A mutual friend eventually reached out, saying she'd lost her job. Apparently, she'd used the house as collateral for a business loan she couldn't repay. When the payments defaulted, the bank came knocking. I won't lie, when I first heard it, I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not pity, just emptiness. The kind of hollow that comes after you've already lost everything worth feeling. A few weeks later, curiosity got the better of me. I searched the address online. The listing popped up immediately. For sale, reduced price. Photos showed empty rooms, peeling paint, dust on the counters. My home, our home, looked abandoned, cold, just like how she left me. Then one night, I got an unexpected call from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me pick up. "Please," the voice on the other end trembled. "I just need to talk." It was Hannah. She sounded nothing like the woman I'd known. Her voice was cracked, small, and tired. "I lost everything," she said. "Brad left. The house, it's gone." I didn't mean for things to end like this. I stayed silent, letting her words hang in the air. The same silence she'd once filled with lies. Can we start over?" she whispered. "I wanted to say something. Anything." But all that came out was a quiet exhale. Then I ended the call. After that, I sat alone in my new apartment, staring out the window. For the first time, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel love, just peace. Cold, quiet, final peace. It had been almost 6 months since that phone call when she showed up. I came home from work one evening, and there she was, standing in the hallway outside my apartment like a ghost from a past I thought I'd buried. Her hair was a mess, her eyes sunken, and for the first time since I'd known her, Hannah looked. "Small, please," she said softly, clutching her bag like a shield. "I just need 5 minutes." I wanted to shut the door right there, but something, maybe curiosity, maybe closure, made me step aside. She walked in and looked around my modest one-bedroom. It was clean, simple, nothing like the luxury house she'd lost. Her eyes lingered on the bare walls. "This is nice," she murmured, voice cracking. I didn't offer her a seat. I didn't say anything. I just stood there, waiting. "I messed up," she finally said, tears filling her eyes. "I thought I was chasing stability, something better. Brad promised me everything, but it was all lies. He used me and left, and when you disappeared," her voice broke, "I realized you were the only one who ever actually loved me." I stayed silent. She fumbled in her bag and pulled out an envelope, thick, sealed. "It's what I could recover from the house sale. It's not everything you spent, but I want you to have it. I need you to know I'm sorry." I looked at the envelope, then at her. "Keep it," I said quietly. "You already paid the price." Tears ran down her face as she whispered, "You really hate me, don't you?" I shook my head. "No, I just finally love myself enough not to go back." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then she nodded slowly, like she understood. When she walked out, I didn't follow. And for once, I didn't feel abandoned. I felt free after Hannah left my apartment that night. I sat there for a long time staring at the closed door, feeling the weight of every year I'd wasted trying to build something with her. But this time, it wasn't sadness I felt, it was finality, the kind that settles deep in your chest and quietly says, "It's over." A week later, I got an email from her lawyer, polite, professional, and full of regret. She was trying to clear the debts tied to the house. But since everything was legally under her name, every payment, every unpaid loan, every overdue tax fell squarely on her shoulders. I didn't need to lift a finger. My silence, my absence, had already done what confrontation never could. What she didn't know was that before I disappeared, I'd made sure every transfer, every receipt, every bit of proof of what I'd paid for was securely documented. If she ever tried to pull me back into that mess, I'd have the truth waiting. But she never did. She couldn't. The mess was hers alone now. Months later, we crossed paths one final time, purely by accident. It was at a grocery store of all places. She looked worn, older, her confidence gone. When she saw me, she froze. Then, quietly, she said, "You really planned it all, didn't you?" I met her gaze. "You planned your lies," I said calmly. "I just made sure you couldn't lie forever." Her eyes welled up, but I didn't wait for a response. I walked away, leaving her standing in the aisle, clutching a basket she could barely afford to fill. That was the last time. I saw her, the woman who thought she could steal my future and sell it for profit. Turns out, she sold her peace instead, and I bought mine back in silence. It's been over a year since Hannah last crossed my path, and sometimes I still catch myself driving past houses with for sale signs, wondering how many of them were built on lies like mine. But I don't feel bitterness anymore, just clarity. What I lost in money, I gained in peace. My life is simple now. My mornings start with quiet coffee, not anxiety. My phone doesn't buzz with accusations or empty promises. I've started reading again, cooking again, living again. It's strange how peace feels heavier than chaos at first, like your body doesn't trust it, but over time, it settles. I went to therapy too, not because of her, but because I finally wanted to understand why I stayed so long. My therapist said something that stuck. Sometimes closure isn't an apology. It's accepting you'll never get one. That hit me harder than any betrayal ever could. I built something new, a small real estate consultancy that helps people avoid the kind of financial traps I fell into. It feels poetic, almost ironic, to turn my biggest mistake into something that protects others. Clients tell me I have a calm energy, that I make them feel safe. If only they knew where that calm came from, a storm I barely survived. One evening, I drove past our old neighborhood. The house was gone, sold, rebuilt, repainted. A young couple was moving in, laughing as they unloaded boxers. For a moment, I smiled. That house had finally found people who deserved it. I rolled down the window, let the wind hit my face, and whispered to no one, "You wanted a dream house, Hannah. I built mine out of peace." And for the first time in my life, I knew I'd never go back to building someone else's happiness at the cost of my own.